Happy Easter, folks. It's me, Ellie Rashid here, and I bring you on repeat with my wonderful podcast partner, Hattie Winter, for your musical fix of the week.
Break from me, in between my fingertips, catching on the morning sunshine, baby. It fractures in your eyes. Every time we say goodbye, you're blazing blue.
This week we bring you an Easter surprise, and no less, with the wonderful Uma, who we mentioned actually in our podcast with Lucy Liu. The two are renowned for working wonderfully together, and actually they're even a couple, so how about that?
Where does all the time go? Do I tip?
But let's speak a little bit about Uma. So, understanding Uma's childhood is really important when you're getting to know her work, because she was born in Catalonia to a British mother trained in performance art and a Thai father working in a hospice in the slums of Bangkok. So her upbringing really influences her sounds, and we do touch upon this during this interview. Uma was classically trained in violin from the age of 4 years old. She even went on to study music at York, but she can do far more than just classical. She actually cites Joni Mitchell, Ella Fitzgerald, Nico, Shakira. We talk about Shakira and Florence and the Machine. We also speak about the possibly forgotten Avril Lavigne and what an icon she was for so many young girls. In this interview, we also speak about quarantine and what it's like to write in that period, but also putting on gigs, whether they're online or even in person in Uma's case. So she's been doing some pretty wonderful things during lockdown. She set up a residency entitled Can Obit in her house in Spain, and that's where we're interviewing her as well, by the way. And it's really wonderful because it's sort of community-focused project, and it's all about collaboration, which is just wonderful. It's exactly what we love on repeat. So many interesting conversations in this interview, actually. We talk about shy performers, what it's like to be a shy performer when people expect you to be really outgoing. So some really juicy conversations for you to get your teeth stuck into. But for now, I'm going to leave you with this beautiful Uma tune called Astronaut. It's actually one of my personal favourites. I've had it on repeat for such a long time. So you can sit back, relax, keep this one on repeat, and enjoy what Uma has to say, because it's really, really wonderful. And remember, if you enjoy this podcast, just give us a like, subscribe, share with your friends, you know, say, I love that podcast, love that music podcast. We really, really appreciate it. And, you know, it just validates the work that we do. That would be really, really wonderful. Thank you so much.
I tiptoe on a tightrope around you. Forgive me, I'm breathless. We're all alone out in space, astronauts colliding, face to face, keep lying.
I guess I'm a indie folk pop musician based in Spain. So I grew up here and then I went to York for university. And then I moved back here for almost a year and then moved to London for 2. So I've been kind of back and forth.
How do you think kind of the change of locations influenced your music? I was doing a bit of research on you, and your mum's English, you grew up in Spain. I think they said your dad was from Thailand.
Yeah.
You've been to York. Well, you studied in York, lived in London. They're all very distinct sounds. How do you think that's kind of shaped your music, your projects?
I think the main or my musical base is so classical and so European in a way that inevitably that's where I kind of started from. That was my starting point. And I listened to a lot of Brazilian music at home. But then I think when I started getting into songwriting and wanting to be a musician more in that kind of way, I was listening to singer-songwriters like Laura Marling. So the British thing definitely influenced me there. And I think I've only just like gotten brave enough to explore the rest of it. Like, I think obviously all of the experience influenced who I am as a person, but musically, I'm starting to feel especially the Spanish side come out more. I'm like starting to write a new project. I'm not really sure what it is yet. And I've written my first Spanish song. And I was always too nervous to do that. But lockdown has given me, the freedom to do that, which has been great.
I find it really interesting about your influences, actually, and the fact that you studied classical, whatever the hell that means, at York, and you did violin. So what was the course like?
So you had to get in you had to do performance. So I guess it was kind of performance based, but there was a lot of theory. I think part of the reason I gravitated towards York was because it was very quite traditional, but also it had a very big department that looked into contemporary classical music.
Right.
And that's something that I was really interested in. I think also because my mom had been she's a performance artist, but she comes from the really intellectual side. So she'd given me all of this stuff before going there. And I was really interested in sound art and installations. And by the end of my time at York, I really was moving more towards that. It's funny because I have played the violin, or I played the violin since I was about 5. And then after university, I just stopped. And I completely fell out of love with the whole classical music, orchestra. And I've been on this long journey after university to kind of try and find my way back to it. But it's really hard, I think, especially when you go through that really tough, not much freedom within the structure of classical music. But York was very free. I just don't think it was I was going through my own thing with classical music.
It's interesting you say that. I, funnily enough, felt so much empathy because I felt in exactly the same position after having done quite a classical course. I did opera, and I remember afterwards just wanting to just listen to anything but. You know, it was so intense, and I same as you as well, just finding it quite difficult to get back on that journey. Perhaps it's also because we can't really go to concerts at the moment, but I'm hoping that when they do sort of come up again, we might be able to, I don't know, find that streak. Do you think it was important though to have that grounding? I mean, you said you were learning from 5 years old. That's quite young.
Yeah.
Are you glad that
definitely.
you had that foundation?
Yeah. I think it's informed who I am as a musician. It's given me all of the more theory base, all of that side. I feel really lucky to have it because of that. I think that as a general life learning experience, it was really good for me to have that consistency. And I think it was something that I was really stubborn about. I hate practicing. I've always hated practicing. It drives my mom crazy. And every time I wouldn't want to practice, she'd be like, okay, then we'll give the violin away. You don't have to play if you don't want to. We'll just give it to a kid who really does want to play. And I was like, no, I want to keep doing this. This is my thing. So
Your
I think
mum
it was
knew
just
what she was
out of
doing.
stubbornness. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I actually have a question for both of you here. Just talking about this, I'm just imagining Uma, 5 years old, playing the violin, and it reminds me quite a lot of some of the pupils I have who are so young. And do you both think that 5 years old is too young to learn an instrument? Or do you think that it depends on the instrument, or do you think that somehow children should be given the choice to choose their instrument, or how can they know?
I definitely chose mine.
You chose yours?
Yeah, I chose mine. I was walking past a music school, and there was like these windows. It's in my local town, and there are these windows that you can look in. And apparently I spotted someone playing the violin, and I was like, I want that. And just went
Wow.
on and on and on about it until they got me a violin. But I think it depends on the teacher you have. Like, I think for my first years, I had the most, like, I've always had incredible teachers, but I think my first years, I had a really good teacher who allowed me to just learn and play and fall in love with playing. Whereas the later years, I had a very strict teacher who's like, you can't improvise unless your technique is perfect. You can't do anything. You have to be perfectly in tune. And I think that was definitely the start of me falling out of love with it. So I think it's just the teacher you get.
Yeah, I think that comes down to a lot of things. I was thinking about that with languages. I think a lot of, I don't know, I think, people are like, oh, English people don't know any languages. We don't, we're terrible. But I don't know, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's had like a decent language teacher in kind of like secondary school, at least maybe like just all the comprehensives that I know. And I think that can really make and break your relationship with it. And I also think, I think it's really important that kids are allowed to just like play with the instruments and like learn through mistakes. And I don't know, sometimes maybe we put way too much effort on that kids need to be like the next Mozart, but you should be able to like pick up a drum and just like bang it, and that's
definitely
fun. I don't think 5's too young at all.
Yeah.
I think younger, just out the womb with a tambourine, the dream.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think that free play in music is one of the most important things, and even better, well, it sounds like, Uma, you managed to do this, like you actually chose your instrument. I think that's quite unusual for 5-year-olds. I think it's rare. Often it's the parent choosing, and often that can then be quite a gendered thing as well. So I mean, we see, like, I'm trying to think what's a really, like, the flute, with exception of Luke Scott, actually, the flute is often quite a kind of female instrument. Violin, I'm not sure. I guess that's a little bit of both, isn't it?
I love a violin.
Yeah, I think that's both.
So
I think there's a real mix in in gender and violinists, but mainly because you have these incredibly like talented male concert violinists who have become very famous over the years.
What did you give up the violin? Well, not give up the violin. What did you kind of jump to after the violin? You stopped playing that. What instrument are you playing now?
Guitar is probably my main instrument now. Mid-York, I kind of started, I'd written songs for a while, but in that way where you're like, yeah, I can write songs. I'm just playing around. And then in York, I started a band with 3 friends, and all of us love classical music, but I think all of us had a really weird relationship with it. So we decided to start a folk band, which was really fun because that was like the first proper band I was in. And there were 4 of us. Alessia was on guitar, then we had violin, a cellist, and me on vocals because I was always too panicked to play the violin in public. And I just started writing more and more there. So I think I didn't feel as sad about not playing the violin anymore because I had this other thing that I'd been doing for a while.
That makes sense.
I wonder if like violins, I really don't know much about them. Like, do they lend themselves to kind of like songwriting? Like, sing, like, do you know what I mean? I'm imagining like being in your bedroom and you're like, we're all putting words together to try and make something. I'm like, I can imagine that on a guitar. I can't imagine that on a...
To be honest, I've never done it on a violin. I've like added violin after, but I've never written to violin. But that's probably something that I'd be interested in doing.
Yeah, that's actually a really good idea because you could probably get some melodies from that. I mean, you're right, Hattie. I think most people do write songs on instruments where chords are available. Chords are available technically on the violin, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm just imagining like Liam Gallagher like writing like Champagne Supernova with a violin, and I'm like, would he have done that? Don't know.
So was the folk group that you had, was that the first sort of time that you were really singing.
Yeah. And my voice has changed so much since then.
That's really interesting, because your voice is very distinctive, and I think it's really difficult for singers. It can sometimes take a lifetime to actually find your voice in whatever style. So do you feel like that's something that's developed, or do you feel like you've always known what your voice is?
Oh no, I think when I was probably 7 or 8, I thought I was a great singer and would like belt Shakira. And then I think I've always been like, oh well, this is something I can do, because I feel I don't know why I felt confident in it. But listening back to old recordings of that band, yeah, my voice has changed a lot, and I think it's still developing and still changing. I think the more confident I get in my music, the more my voice changes as well.
Can you pinpoint any like changes? Is there anything that like I don't know, sticks out to you?
Well, I feel like it's less annoying now. It's mainly deeper, I think, than before. I never really, but I think that's also just me. I never really let myself sing that deep. Like I'd always try and do these high melodies and belt it. And I've just kind of discovered over the years that my voice doesn't really do that, and that's okay. And I think coming to terms with that has been really important, to just learn where my voice can go and how it can go there.
Yes, that's a really good point. And I think that's a really nice thing to mention as well, because it looks like there are a lot of singers coming through at the moment who are becoming quite popular. Like I'm thinking like even Arlo Parks, like people like Phoebe Bridgers, I guess like even Laura Marling, and people who they don't belt it, and it's like people are kind of appreciating that purity a little bit more. And you're right, I think after kind of, you know, X Factor time, where that's what was seen as good singing, people seem to be stripping back a little bit and actually trying to sort of find their own voices, which is great. And the other thing I was going to say about the sort of deep voice thing is that people forget that women's voices do actually break as well.
Yeah, totally.
Like I think I can remember my voice kind of breaking, and like I see it now, like when like sometimes when I'm singing songs that I sung when I was like 10, I'm like, oh actually something happened.
It hurts, yeah.
Exactly. What were your you mentioned Shakira. This is really funny. Like, what were your other kind of like sing-along things?
I went through a very it must have been a terrible phase for my parents, but my sister lives in Italy, and I think the summer I was maybe I can't remember when I actually can't remember how old I was, but I must have been like 8 or 9 or maybe 10. And we drove down from Spain to Italy, and I had 2 CDs that this older girl from school had given me for my birthday, and she was like really cool, and she'd come to my birthday party and she bought Avril Lavigne and Shakira, and I had those 2, and I didn't let them turn it off, and I just sat in the back like scream. I know all of the lyrics to all of the songs, so those are the 2 pieces that everybody asked me. They're like, so what are like the first albums that you can really reference? And those are the 2 ones that I really love.
That's amazing.
I do think that's quite a good kind of like mirror of your kind of influence. You've got like Shakira with like her very like Latin influence. You've got Avril Lavigne, which is like your Canadian.
Yeah, I don't know.
I
actually don't know like where. I can definitely feel that influence in my music coming out every now and again, but I think I'm also very aware of it. So I'm like, okay, Uma, don't go there too much.
Oh my God. I remember that Avril Lavigne album so much. It was iconic. But I also remember that Shakira album. I think there's like a couple of songs on there that I think still really stand up.
And it's an album that she did in Spanish and then did it the whole thing again in English. And that was, for me, that was mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, I get to listen to it twice and it's the same but different.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is the dream.
It's funny because
that would have been a long ride though, your poor parents.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I really feel for them.
Yeah, I actually discovered those early Shakira tracks quite recently, and I was kind of, my mind was blown. I was like, wow. And also Avril Lavigne is someone, I think she's been quite an important musical icon for a lot of women, particularly, which is, I mean, yeah, still a bit of a guilty pleasure for me, to be honest.
Have you heard the theory that like she died and
Yeah.
was replaced by her twin?
Yeah.
So many.
I kind of believe it.
She does.
She does
does
look
look
different,
different.
right?
But I'm like, maybe that's just plastic surgery. Maybe
Yeah.
that's what fame does to you.
Yeah, maybe.
I just want to bring it back to the singing a sec, because I think we could go on and on and on about this. But something that really strikes me about the stuff that you've been doing with Luke, that's Lucy Lou, for people listening, and it's really, yeah, it has really got that kind of pure quality. But I love the fact that when you both sing together, it's not necessarily always in harmony. It's sometimes in unison, but it feels like it's in harmony somehow. And you've both got such unique voices, and you can tell that it's you. I think that's something that's really lovely. But they also blend very well, sort of on top of each other. They sit very well together. Is that something that you're kind of aware of when you're singing together? Is it something that you feel is really natural, or do you feel like you manipulate it in a way?
It's something we've definitely discovered, like stumbled upon in quarantine, just working together a lot and singing together. And we wrote those first songs and recording them really quickly and didn't really have time to figure out the harmonies. So we did a lot of unison and didn't realize how it sounded. But since then, we've started to explore that more in a more in a more careful way, maybe, where we actually try and make it sound like one voice, which is really hard because doubling is like its own art form. But I feel like we've spent so long now doubling each other that we're getting quite good at it. So I think we've done a lot of stuff for his album, which is going to be out at some point soon, which is sounding great. And we're writing a lot of new stuff. And I really like it. It gives, I think because of the depth of my voice, like because I can sing quite deep and he can go quite a lot higher than I can, we can make this voice that neither of us can really get on our own, which has been fun.
Yeah, and it almost becomes like proper sort of unity. It sounds like its own, just one voice. And I think because of that, because it feels so sort of unison, it draws you even more into the lyrics in a kind of almost like folk way, which I find really interesting. So when you're writing lyrics, I mean, it must be, do you find it easier to write on your own, or do you write together? And how is that as well? Because obviously you two in a relationship, is that ever a bit difficult?
Yeah, I mean, it's taken us a really long. We've been together a while now, and it's taken us a really long time. I think again, it comes down to, for me, the confidence that I had in my own music and that I have in kind of my skill and my skill in songwriting, because I was always really shy. So we'd get in a room, because since before we've been together, we've always been like, yeah, we should write together, and we've tried it and we've made songs over the years. But I was always coming at it from a point where I was very shy and being like, I don't know if my lyrics are gonna be good enough, and I don't really want to sing this because it's not gonna sound good. So I find it a lot easier to write by myself. But because we've been put in the same space, and kind of the best way to keep sane for both of us has been to keep working, we've created a space where I think both of us feel like we can write in a very free way, which is really cool, because I'd never had someone who was that encouraging and being like, yeah, it's fine. Just like, even if it sounds really rubbish, it's going to be fine. We've been writing a lot together in the last couple of weeks, but sometimes I have to kick him out out of the room. I have to just be like, please just leave me alone with this piece of music, and I'll write something and then come back to you with it. And yeah, it's tricky, but I think it's just we're in a really tricky situation where we're stuck in the middle of the countryside, and we do the same job basically, so we can't really escape that.
Yeah. Actually, I do kind of want to touch on like quarantine and lockdown, because you've released so much during the time. But I kind of want to go back to something you just said, and you were saying that you were quite shy about sort of songwriting, and you also said that you've only just built up the kind of confidence to release something in Spanish. But like, what kind of pushed you? Not pushed you over the edge. That sounds really negative. What kind of did make you take the leap and like kind of feel confident? Was it being in lockdown and kind of, I don't know, having the time to explore and create more and just be like, do you know what?
Yeah,
let's
I think
do it.
Where we were coming from as a couple, we needed to sort through a lot of things. And I think that for me, my work and my personal life, I write about what I know. So I write about what I'm going through. So it always inevitably becomes kind of biographical. And yeah, because we'd kind of just come back together, it became very therapeutical. So because of all of that stuff that had to come out, it just felt easier for it to come out in the work rather than sometimes just like have a big conversation or have a fight. We've worked a lot of things out in the music. And I think that once you've put everything out there and gone through all of that stuff, especially in that space, it feels silly to keep being shy. I think that was it. I was just like, well, there's not really a point in me being shy anymore.
Yeah, that's so good. I am really happy to hear like something kind of positive. I think out of a lot of the negative, I think it's really good to know that there's definitely some silver linings. I've definitely experienced it in my own relationship, and we aren't making music together, but I think it's a really strange situation to be with someone pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, lockdown is intense.
It's really intense, really, really intense. Me and my boyfriend like share like an office space, and we kind of have similar-ish jobs, like similar enough that we can ask each other's opinion on like what we're working on, but different enough that we don't have to get like bogged down in the details. And it could have all gone really horribly wrong. So it's nice when things have gone really wonderfully well, because it is just a intense.
Yeah, we're both very stubborn, so we've had quite a few run-ins with with having to work in the same space and share the same creative space. But I think if you're able to make it work, then it's great.
Definitely. And it must be really nice to be creating in such a beautiful setting. Do you think that's kind of helped?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's helped. We've got loads of animals here as well. So it's all been, it's been good to have that outside world. Nice.
What animals do you have? I feel like sometimes I live on a farm and I've got two cats and a dog now.
Two cats and a dog.
Like, yeah. Sometimes I wake up and it's like, oh man, I got to feed all the animals. So, what animals have you got?
We've got 3 dogs and 3 cats. Well,
oh my God.
2 cats, but one just adopted us. She just turned up and she won't leave, and she's actually quite aggressive. She like attacks all of the other animals, but her owner, I know who she belongs to as well, and her owner will like drop by every now and again, but he believes she has it's her choice. He's like, she's made her choice. She wants to be with you, so he'll park his car outside. And he like beeps to let us know he's out there. And I hear him opening the door to his car, and he's like, okay, Goo, if you want to come in, I'll take you home. You can come home with me. And then I think like a couple of days ago he did that, and the neighbor drove in and he was blocking the road. And I just started hearing her being like, just pick the cat up. It's a cat. And he was like, just leave me alone. So yeah. Anyway, we've got lots of animals. 2 massive mastiffs. Which is,
wow.
Yeah.
That feels like such a busy house, but a lot to keep you busy with. And there is nothing like I don't know, sometimes I think my dog and my cats give me like perspective, where I'm like, do you know what, everything's really crap, and then I look at my little dog's face and like, do you know what, it's fine, things will be fine,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
unhealthy. Yeah, it's quite good, quite grounding.
It's interesting you were speaking about being shy, and we have spoken about this before as well. And it's funny how a lot of our guests have actually said that they think they're shy, and yet this is a music podcast, and we're talking about songwriting, performing. Do you ever feel like people do expect that you're really outgoing and confident and like ready to perform? And how does that kind of make you feel? Are you okay to just sort of perform whenever? Or do you feel like, do you have any coping mechanisms?
I think I'm quite good at separating. I don't know if this is the right word or the right kind of way of describing it, but of like turning it on or turning the shyness off. Like if I meet you just as me and someone's introducing you in a completely like just a dinner party or just in the park, I'll probably be super shy and I come across as like being a bit unfriendly. And I'm also very much a country bumpkin. So I just like being by myself in the countryside and not really, I'm very happy in that context. So I find that side of just like being human, that makes me shy. But then being a performer, I just love it. I love it a lot. And I think over the years I've enjoyed being on stage more and more. So yeah, I get really nervous, but then once I'm up there, I find it really hard to like stop. We had a gig recently, which was really weird, but we had a really beautiful gig in Barcelona, and it was tiny because obviously there's loads of restrictions. So there was like 40 people and all socially distanced and masked, but it felt very intimate. So I just kept going. I was like, should we do another song? And Luke was like, yeah, sure, if you want to. And I was like, guys, should we do another song? And they were like, yeah, okay. So I think I become almost a different person on stage. And
Remember Luke was talking a little bit about the performances that you were doing, and actually Tim, who I'm working with at the moment on an album, we were saying, oh, we need to go and visit them and like do something, because you seem to work in we will but
We'll do a road trip.
yeah, definitely.
well, definitely. But you seem to work in such interesting spaces, and it's something that I've also noticed on like your social media and things like that. And you're talking about the Barcelona gig and things. Have you had any more really interesting gigs in interesting spaces?
I think this whole year we've been really lucky because Spain have kept culture just for economic purposes. They've kept a lot of concerts, especially in the summer. They were all outside, so they kept them going. So we've actually done a lot in the last year, and they've all been really, I think this has been the most crazy year for gigs for me, because they've all been very touching, because we've all been in quarantine for so long that when you're allowed to go out and when you make it to an event like that, I think people would just automatically really grateful, and they're like the quietest gigs I've ever played, and people will email in after and come up after and be like, thank you so much, it's been a year since I've seen a gig. So I think just because of that, these have been really incredible.
Do you have any gigs in the pipeline as well at the moment, because things are starting to sort of open up?
Or any virtual gigs?
Yes.
Oh, I have a virtual gig. Well, it's kind of a gig. I think it's like an Instagram live. I think that's the next thing and the only thing I have booked in. And I think it's on the 15th of April on the Blogotech Instagram.
Amazing.
Have you done like an Instagram live performance before?
No.
What's that?
No, that's something.
Gonna be your first one?
Yeah, this is going to be my first one. Luke did loads at the start of lockdown. Well, loads. He did a couple at the start of lockdown. And but I've never had to do one. I think I always have a great excuse. I'm always like, this is an area where I get really shy and my internet's pretty bad. So I'm always like, oh, I don't know if I can do Instagram live because my internet's going to crash. I did like one Instagram live kind of interview with another musician, and yeah, my internet was so bad that we just had to stop it.
Oh, I mean, I think people now are very forgiving.
Yeah.
And, like, that's totally fine. I wonder, like, Do you think that you'll feel shyer? I don't know. I'm finding it interesting that maybe you'd feel shyer for like the Instagram live where you actually can't see anyone, as opposed to like being on a stage.
Yeah, I think so. I think Instagram Live's so weird because it's like it shows you how many people are, it tells you like the number of people watching, and then comments come in, and I find I'm easily distracted by things like that. So I'd be like, oh my God, there's like 4 people, and now there's 5, and now there's 2. Where did everybody go? Maybe they hate my music.
Oh gosh, I mean, I've like sometimes if you're scrolling through Instagram and it's like the live stories, sometimes I've like clicked them and I'm like the first one, I'm like, oh my God. And then I feel really like on the spot and I feel quite shy, and there's somebody like, oh hey Hattie, and I'm like, I'll just leave really quickly. So I can't imagine being on the other side, because even that makes me feel shy.
Yeah, Instagram etiquette is like really weird.
I think it also makes you appreciate just sort of human energy though as well, because you know when you're playing a gig, you kind of sometimes you can see people's faces, or you can just feel it, can't you? You can feel where you're going to go, or like maybe even what song you're going to do next, and that's just a very kind of intuitive thing. Whereas what have you got with Instagram Live or Facebook Live? People sending like love hearts, like or like typing things. It's not the same, like words and energy. And I think that's a massive thing about live performances and gigs, and a reason why we want them back already. But when they do come back, is there any, like, do you have any places or spaces that you think, yeah, I would like to do that? And you can be as wacky or creative as possible. Like, what would be your dream space to perform in, or place? How would you have it? It's kind of like an almost like, how would you have your wedding question? But
yeah, it's really difficult because we've started to put together a new show. So I'm like constantly thinking about how I want to do the next performances. There are so many places. I think a really big one is there's a cave on the coast, like just north of here. And they do like a small series of concerts where you go in on a boat and you go to the cave, and the cave's called, I think it's called the Devil's Cave, because you can see the sunrise, and it makes the cave go like bright red. And so you kind of go with the boat out there before sunset. Then the artist plays a show unplugged, and then you drive back with the sun setting, and it's really beautiful. So that's on my kind of bucket list of shows that I want to do, and the sound in there is incredible. There are so many places.
has anybody ever done anything like that before that you know of?
Yeah. So they do it every summer, and it's quite difficult to get tickets to, because they just have one small boat, and sometimes if you're lucky they'll take like an extra one out, but there's only kind of 5 people per boat.
Sounds so beautiful.
Yeah.
I think you've won that answer. Some people are like, I just want to do this really sweaty club in like East London. I think
I'd love to do
Devil's
sweaty
Cave is so much
clubs
better.
in East London as well. Like I just give me any show, I'll do it. But we're also building an amphitheater in my garden. So when that's done, I want to perform.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, as you do.
I mean, I wish my garden was big enough. I'm considering building like a teeny tiny skate ramp, but even that will just be the whole garden.
Oh, that would be so cool.
An amphitheater would be amazing.
Have you had a gig that you've done that for whatever reason has been like your most memorable?
Yeah, I'd say one of my most memorable was kind of like an improvised gig. And it was one of my parents' friends has a restaurant around here, and we just went to have supper. And one of their other friends was there with her aunt, who was 94. She was like, they were having a big birthday party for her. And they were like, oh, let's have a concert. Let's just have a party. And they had no amplification, and they just like got me up on a table. But I love those. Those are the kind of gigs that I love, where I can just like be on Uma time with just me and the guitar and make it really personal. Those are like my favorite gigs.
Yeah, because you said that was an
Wonderful
improvised gig, and when you said that, I thought you meant that all the music was improvised, like
Oh, no.
like like a huge
Yeah.
improvisation. But you meant like the whole, like, it was just spontaneous.
Yeah, exactly, spontaneous.
But you do improvise stuff, right?
Kind of, not that much in the past, but the new setup for the live stuff is now a lot more electronic. We've got like synths, and I'm on bass synth, and we've got a drum machine, and that there's a lot more space for the improvised stuff there. So it's just like Luke and I on stage, and that feels more improvised because there's more space for both of us to play and just have fun with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people who maybe listen to quite specific genres or pop, or, things with clear lyrics, they sometimes struggle a little bit with the idea of having something quite free-flowing and improvised. Is there any way that you could kind of, I don't know, almost give some sort of pointers or tips to people on how to listen to that kind of music, if you know what I mean, like what to listen out for? How do you kind of engage yourself if you're not used to that?
I think it's kind of what you were saying with the gigs and the Instagram gigs, is you have to feel it. I think that's the main thing, is if you don't connect with it, you're not gonna get it. But it might really surprise you. I think going in with the open mind of saying, okay, well, maybe this isn't quite what I'm used to, but I'm just gonna see if it does something for me.
Yeah, I think that's
jumping into the deep end.
That's a really, really good point. I think just keeping open-minded about everything, and if you're used to lyrics, I think you can always kind of latch on to certain melodies and sometimes make your own lyrics up depending on how you feel that vibe is.
Yeah, definitely.
That's it. So it can be quite a sort of a creative experience for the audience or for the listener, I guess, can't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it can be very playful. But I think it's like a lot of things, like sometimes if you don't understand it, you're like, well, it doesn't make any sense to me, so I'm just going to shut it off.
So you've had loads of things coming out sort of this year, late last year. So like Black Bees, Bring Me the Mountain. You just released Nebula. You've got an EP coming out next month. You said earlier on, is it next month?
Yeah, it's next month.
Yeah.
Already.
Exciting. And then you said you're working on some more projects. And I was like, how do you have time to like put down all the ideas? Where do actually your ideas come from? They seem so boundless.
Having a like workaholic, stubborn, and very caring partner really helps in that, because I think I'd take a lot more time off, but yeah, he loves to work, and we inevitably end up working a lot. So it's just been I think going back to one of my first points is I hate practicing, but this year has really been a year of practice, and I think I've just spent so many hours writing and working on the live setup and the EPs. So,
yeah, and I'm assuming like you might write like a lyric, or maybe like you might come up with a melody, and if it doesn't work, are you the type of person that will like put that in a box and kind of come back to it, use it for like future influences? You said that you don't listen much back to your songs. I'm wondering if you do that with your ideas as well.
Oh, I listen to my music so much. I listen to my music a lot until the point when everybody else can listen to it. Like, yeah. I think I put things in like different folders and notebooks and I forget about a lot of them. But lately, and I don't want to say this like too soon, so touch wood, but we've been working and I've been writing very quickly, which has been nice, because usually I spend like a while coming and going with a song. But yeah, I think it depends on the song as well and what it's about.
Nice. Do you have any like favorite themes, or are you again quite sort of free with that?
I inevitably end up writing like about myself and my love life, which is harder to do when you're feeling happy. So I'm starting to explore other themes and pushing myself. I think also pushing myself to like uncomfortable places is.
You said that like it was a bad thing. I think we were talking to someone maybe a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, you know, Adele is so fake. Like, everyone was like, "Oh, we don't really want Adele to like get happy and get down," because her albums are so much about her love life. That's a really cruel thing. Sorry, Adele, if you're listening. but yeah, but I think, you know, I think it's a place that a lot of people can kind of universally understand, isn't it? Like, we're all trying to make sense of ourselves and find love and be in love and know how to love. So
Yeah,
they're really good themes.
That was very beautiful. Then.
Oh dear. I was going to say, going way back, you've obviously collaborated loads with Lucy Liu. Are there any dream collaborations that you would like to have? They could be dead, they could be alive.
or
You're not limited by any sort of realistic things. Who would you love to work with?
this is a really tough one. I'd love to work. I think I'd love to work with like a very like classical composer like Debussy. I'd love to just sit down and be like, let's write some pop songs.
That's really cool. I can also see you working with someone like Joanna Newsom.
Oh yeah,
I'm in love with her.
Would love to work with Joanna Newsom.
You can make some cool stuff.
All of the like Brazilian Caetano Veloso, all of those, like I'd love to also just even just sit in a room with them. I wouldn't mind. Just like let me watch you work and I'll be happy.
I love that so much.
I love that.
But yeah.
That's so good. What can we expect from your EP next month?
Slightly happier music.
Excellent.
And lots of love songs.
Perfect. My favourite.
Yeah.
My favourite two things, I'd say.
That's good.
I'm looking forward to like having it on repeat, to be honest.
Oh, I hope you enjoy it. I'm so nervous.
Oh, bless you. What's the date?
9th of April.
That is quite soon, actually.
Yeah, that's very soon.
How long has it been kind of in the works? How long have you been working on it?
It's been done since like last August.
Okay.
Yeah, so a while. We wrote it at the very start of lockdown. We wrote most of it.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I don't really realize that it's out that soon. And then about a month later, I'm releasing a kind of double-sided single featuring an amazing artist, or not featuring, just like as a joint release. She's called Amy Mae Ellis, and that's going to be very folky. So I think this is going to be more electronic and then going back to very, very folky.
Oh, I love it. Lots of like surprises, very playful, which I think is a good theme.
But yeah, and then like a month after that, we've got a kind of surprise. This is the first time we're talking about it, but a mixtape.
Oh wow!
Coming out.
What?
Yeah, so there's a lot of releases.
So many releases. How do you keep track?
I don't. I'm really bad at replying to messages. I'm really bad at social media. I'm really bad at all of it. I just can't keep track of all of it. So I just go with
the flow.
Whatever's happening. Yeah.
Sounds like a really amazing couple of months lined up, to be honest. Very exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be shared more on Anthony Fontana. I forget his name. I'm sure.
Fantano, yeah, hopefully.
We'll reach out to him as well and be
we'll
like,
see.
you need to have a listen.
You need to review this. You need to talk about this more. Get her some more followers.
We've been talking quite a lot about your influences throughout, but do you have any particular influences at the moment? Who do you have on repeat at the moment?
Who do I have on repeat? Who do I have on repeat? I have a lot of female artists on repeat right now.
What would
I've
you
got
like
like
to
a playlist of only female artists. It's got like an artist, I think she's based in London, called Sola. She's amazing. I love all of her stuff. I love her voice. I love everything about her. I've got lots of Little Dragon
Oh yeah, nice.
as well. Some Raven Lene. And who else? And then this, I think she's Mexican. She's kind of my favorite artist at the moment. She's called Natalia Lafourcade.
It's been amazing to talk to you and just have a real, like, quite a chilled out conversation about everything. And I feel like after this conversation, your music makes quite a lot more sense to me, actually. And it feels very, very real. Like I mean, I sensed that it was very real anyway, but after having talked to you, it just it's nice to kind of really understand that it comes from such an authentic place. So
Oh, thank you. It was lovely talking to you.
bye.
Okay,
I
bye.
can feel the world on my shoulders. And even though my heart broke a while ago, it still weighs me down. People say I sound a little older this year.
She's so lush, isn't she? She's just brilliant. If you enjoyed that, then remember you can follow Uma on Instagram at Umonsky. That's UMONSKI. This will be a really good way to keep up to date with her new EP release, which will be the 9th of April. Very, very soon. But right now I have the pleasure of leaving you with this early Uma tune called Mockingbird. So I hope you enjoy, and we will see you next week. Have a lovely Easter, everyone.
And you can hear the crush of our bones louder when we're dancing chants, taking my word for now, going unheard for now. And I feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. My heart weighs me down, and they say I sound a little older. Maybe I was never that young or wise. Feel the weight of the world on my shoulders, and love lets me down. So darling, let me stay.